and sometimes some of our colleagues don't see that urgency. So there is a need to crack the whip, and even for Parliament too, to ask the hard questions to departments. And again, if we look at local government, you'll find that many municipalities fail to pay workers on time. They fail to pay the pension funds on time. They fail to provide basic services. So
you do make many valid points, particularly that around tax compliance and the impact that it could have on raising that 75 billion rand deficit. Matthew Parks Kusati speaking to us on the reaction to scrap VAT. Appreciate your time. Now, National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola says officers won't rest until 3 missing constables are found. They disappeared 4 days ago while travelling from Bloemfontein to Limpopo, with their last known location being the Gasmere toll plaza in Gauteng. Masemola says a dedicated team has been put together to investigate the case.
We are deeply disturbed by the disappearance of our own. It is indeed not business as usual, as we will not rest until we have found our missing members, Constable Linda, Constable Base, and Constable Senore. Ladies and gentlemen, I have put together a team which is led by the Deputy National Commissioner of Crime Detection, Lieutenant General Sibia, together with the Provincial Commissioner of Free State.
Masemola says the search has been widened to cover all 3 provinces.
The second focus of our investigation is to find those who are behind the disappearance of these members. We are so far quite confident that we have deployed the necessary resources and experience to find these members. Our investigation is quite crucial as it covers both the Free State, the Gauteng, as well as Limpopo. We are aware that, yes, the disappearance of these members happened in Gauteng, but of course we will cover all the 3 provinces.
Masemola has called on anyone with information to come forward. A 350,000 rand reward is also being offered.
We will find whoever is behind this. We will definitely make sure that we don't rest. On that score, we have put out a reward of 350,000 for any information on the whereabouts of our members and the whereabouts of those that might be behind the disappearance of our own members. Anyone who has solid or accurate information is advised to contact the investigating officer, who is the lead investigator in this case, Captain Manga, on 082 527 6099. You are reminded that anyone who shares information will remain anonymous.
This Freedom Day, South Africa stands at a crossroads. While officials raise flags, millions raise their voices to say we are not free. The raw sewage flooding homes in Mfuleni, the 640 million rand infrastructure grant left unspent, and the shack fires that claim lives weekly all scream one truth: political freedom has not delivered dignity. Today we bring together these essential perspectives. Dr. Jen Mufamadi, whose powerful essay calls for Freedom Park to become a site of active justice, and Bhekisisa Mncube, whose razor-sharp columns dissect the ANC's broken promises. Ladies and gentlemen, very good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Mufamadi, let me start off with you. Now, your essay speaks powerfully about unfinished liberation. As CEO of Freedom Park, how do you respond to critics who say memorials and museums have become graveyards of hope while millions still live in poverty?
Good evening, and I think this is what my essay is about. Hence, I'm talking about freedom deferred or liberation deferred. The truth of the matter is that obviously the memorials are there to preserve our history and heritage. But the argument is that memorials and museums should move beyond just preserving and memorialization. We need to become centers for dialogue and knowledge and action. We need to become living classrooms where people and communities are educated. The significance of preserving these memories, it's so that we draw lessons and inspirations. If you look at what those who came before us, those who fought for freedom, stood for, a lot of it still has to be achieved. We have achieved political freedom, the right to vote. But that is just the first step. Freedom and liberation is not a destination, it is a process. We still need to continue the fight to liberate ourselves from economic challenges, from health challenges, education, social issues, and social ills. Therefore, my presentation is that the journey towards liberation continues. We have not arrived, and we should not behave like we have arrived. We need to become active citizenry, including memorials like Freedom Park. We need to provoke and ask the hard questions regarding the democratic project and where we are. What have we done well, and what do we still need to do to build on and deepen this democracy?
Bheki, you've written scathingly about state-sanctioned rot. Now, the question is this corruption worse than apartheid's oppression or just different? I mean, how do we combat it without romanticizing the issue?
No. We cannot, by any stretch of an imagination, compare the gangster government of the Afrikaner nationalists with the post-apartheid dispensation. What we have achieved as a country, for instance, we have a constitution that guarantees not just the basic human rights, but the socio-economic rights. That is very important. We have the law book in this country that has replaced the jurisprudence of the gangster government that maimed and killed our people. So when we critique the shortcomings of the post-apartheid government, necessarily the ANC-led government, we must temper our analysis and our outrage with the fact that we are starting from a clean slate. There is nothing to compare a government that was created to serve 3 million South Africans versus a government that has been created to serve 60 million inhabitants. There is absolutely no comparison. But what we do lack in the country is something I call the death of leadership. I mean, as your guest there from Abashal Basem Jondol will tell you, the informal settlements actually in South Africa have increased in the post-apartheid South Africa. Cape Town alone sits with 900 informal settlements, totaling over 180 household members in those places. That is an indignity. That is an indictment on a government that was freely elected by the people of this country, on a promise of bringing about changes and making the constitution livable. So it is true, as Dr. Mufamadi is saying, that we have two paths to freedom. The one that we want, which was supposed to be an all-in-one package in the National Democratic Revolution, is the economic freedom. You cannot explain why 36% of Black people are the only ones who are the highest in terms of unemployment in this country. When I wrote about before the SONA, I said the president must just deliver a one-page SONA and say, we are going to sort out the land in the next 5 years. Because if you don't sort out the land, majority of people in the country of their birth do not have access to land for housing, for farming, and for all other economic activities. You are living on a tinderbox that one day is going to explode. And my thesis is that the barbarians are at the gate. And if we make one slip, if the ANC makes one slip, if the government of national unity disintegrates, South Africa will be in a worse state than it was before 1994, because there are people who have it in themselves to use the state levers and its economic might for personal purposes. We've seen it in this country. We don't have to talk about the Zondo Commission.
Who do the
It
barbarians
will
represent?
happen on a higher scale if we don't do things right.
Bheki, who do the barbarians represent?
I don't think we should speculate, but we can just say anybody on the left, such as the MK party, we know that they have a rogue gallery in parliament, all dressed up in parliamentary attire. But these are the people who plundered openly, like Montana, for instance. When he left Prasa, there was no Prasa. The trains were not running. The new ones were taller than our line. Those are people who are today making our laws. I mean, the guy who ran ESCOM, all he did, Molife, was diesel. And then he said he had stopped load shedding. We now know all those things. He's in court, in and out, facing serious charges of. Those are part of the barbarians, but they are not just found in the MK. You'll find them in the ANC. You're gonna find them in the EFF. One day they will come together and say, we are setting up a new post-ANC government. And they will have a new government that will exclude the ANC and exclude the DA. That is my thesis that says the barbarians will enter the hallowed chambers of our National Assembly, and they will take over the union building, and our so-called freedoms will be thrown out through the window. It will be a free fall from there on. The investors will take flight, and those with a little bit of homes and money, those things will be expropriated by the state, and not for the benefit of the people, for the benefit of the lords, who will be our governors. And they will have been elected, by the way, by the people. So if we don't do things right, and we have this window of opportunity, just 4 years, but it's not looking good. It's been 9 months. We don't have an economic policy in this country that says, how are we going to address the national question? How are we going to address the issue of the lack of economic opportunities for the black people in this country? I keep saying black people as if they are the only ones suffering, but I keep referring to them because they are the majority, and they are the majority in terms of voting. But when it comes to serious issues of income inequality, black people are more suffering. Comes to issues of access to housing, black people are suffering. Access to land, black people are suffering. Access to jobs, black people are suffering. Even though black people now, especially women and young girls, complete more matric more than before, and more even complete tertiary education. But the statistics will tell you, more of those, they remain unemployed.
Dr. Mufamadi, you talked about freedom and illustrated with the ability for the majority black South Africans to be able to vote as one of the achievements in the last 31 years. Now, the acting president, Gwede Mantashe, earlier spoke to many successes that have been enjoyed by South Africa in its freedom years, but also a significant number of young people, those that are 31 years and younger, cannot relate to this freedom. What are some of the other aspects to success that have been enjoyed in the last 31 years that you can talk about?
There are many successes. For example, the expansion in the provision of housing to many South Africans who previously did not have houses. The access, there is an indigent policy where those who cannot afford get a limited access to water and electricity. Education, NEFSAS, some of us are beneficiaries for that. We wouldn't be CEOs if this government did not assist and provide such opportunities. However, if you look at the liberation struggle, it was fought amongst the 4 pillars, and one of those pillars was mass mobilization. The ability to communicate, to inform and educate. Many South Africans who are entrepreneurs do not even know that there are government departments that provide funding for them to start off their businesses. And the other weakness of such provisions, again, it's the format and the requirements. The very same policy, the very same funding meant for the poor makes it difficult in terms of the requirements. Therefore, we need to learn, firstly, to communicate better, to educate so that majority South Africans know about the existence of some of the opportunities that this government provides. However, as we do that, we need to remember why. If we have the Department of Small Business, why was it established? For whom? What is the background? Because if you say this is meant for the poor and up and coming, however, in the requirements, you need a 12-month audited statement. Where will ordinary people in our communities get that? So opportunities are there, successes are there. As we reflect 31 years later, let's focus now on the failures. What is it that makes our people so despondent, so demoralized? Primarily lack of information and access to such resources, but also making it easy and accessible. If we want to turn around the situation for the majority Blacks, whose idea of freedom and democracy remains a dream, we need to do things differently. We need to learn and draw from the lessons of the 30 years where we have failed. And we are saying, until we do that, we are a long way far off in terms of deepening this democracy. So opportunities, successes are there. Many, plenty, innumerable. However, equally, there are many other challenges. And there are, as my colleague also says now, there are those who do not have that access. And as people who live in the shacks outside, as people who live in the townships, who have to commute every day, and because the spatial planning is another challenge, who have to spend half of their salaries just on transportation to get to work. So until certain aspects in terms of the processes are reversed, freedom will remain a dream to the majority of our people.
Dr. Mufamadi, appreciate that input. Bhekisisa, much for you to think about, because I'm hoping when we come back from the break, you will comment on the huge successes that Dr. Mufamadi has talked about. She's the CEO of Freedom Park, and Bhekisisa Mncube, columnist, speaking to us around Freedom Day, which is being celebrated today, April 27th. We're back in a moment. Don't go away. Thank you for staying with us on my Freedom Day panel. I have Dr. Jan Mufamadi, CEO of Freedom Park, and Bhekisisa Mncube, who's a columnist. Bhekisisa, you once wrote, the rivers that once washed our forebears' sins now carry human waste, right? Now, in relation to this and what Dr. Mufamadi said before the break, that the ANC government has enjoyed numerous successes in the last 31 years, are you in agreement?
Well, it's the story of a tale of two cities. What has happened, some people call it that they say apartheid has been privatized. What is not forgivable for the ANC-led government at all levels is that 163 municipalities failed the basic test of maintaining their sewerage system. I went to Durban. A daughter of mine was getting a master's degree. You can imagine how big that was. She was the first in the family. And we had the party by the harbor in Durban. We had to jump over raw sewage to get into a party venue. And I thought it was just because of the floods in Durban. And when I started to dig deeper, no. The Minister of Water and Sanitation says 64 municipalities, actually 94 municipalities, their sewage systems are totally broken. Now, I want South Africans to understand the meaning of a broken sewage system. If you're in Gauteng, go to Mfuleni municipality. You are going to meet human waste in people's houses. A journalist who went on the ground from another publication actually won an award for that kind of investigative journalism, as we call it, telling the stories from the people on the margins of society. Now, people say, is that the worst crime the ANC has committed? And I say to them, no, it's actually not the worst crime. The worst crime is that the majority of people who vote, the majority of people who fought for freedom, are the least people who actually get services from government. It's irrespective of whether people can pay or not. When you open the tap, the water must run. When I cross the street, I shouldn't be jumping over sewage. Now we're talking about broken municipalities. And what does the minister do? She goes to court to try to force them to do what is their core business. Now, that is the lack of leadership at all levels. So the ANC is losing support to other breakaway parties from the ANC because everybody has limits. We can't eat the Constitution. We love it. We can't eat the beautiful laws that they've been created by the ANC. I always say the good example of the success of this democracy is that for a lifetime, I've been a critique of the African National Congress. Others even thought that I had a special hatred for the ANC. But I keep saying to people, I will never critique someone that I don't want them to succeed. The ANC is the leading party in government. If the ANC succeeds, my homeland succeeds. And that is what I want to see for all South Africans. I don't want Mickey Mouse freedom, where I am free because I live in Waterkloof. And when I cross the street, there's a beautiful mall. When I turn my eyes on the other one, there's another mall. There are 3 malls in a walking distance. When I open my tap, there's always water. My sanitation is sorted. I don't know what sewage looks like. That is not freedom. Freedom is when those who, the poorest of the poor, the working class poor, are the people who are, in other words, milking the fruits of freedom, because the idea is to lift those who are down and out to be able to sit in the same table like we do when we vote. When we vote, we all there, we all equal. But as soon as the vote is over, someone goes into an informal settlement. I've been to informal settlement. I stayed in an informal settlement for 2 years. And it's soul destroying. It's gut-wrenching. You realize the total criminal neglect of the post-Apartheid order. We can never criticize the Apartheid government and say it neglected the people. It was founded on the idea of excluding black people.
Bheki, I'm going to ask you to pause there. I'm going to ask you to pause there and bring in Dr. Mufamadi. Dr. Mufamadi, you've heard much that Bheki said in the last couple of minutes. How do you react to that? Because you've talked about numerous successes, but the basics, right? The basics, running water, sewage systems that work, are dysfunctional. And if we take that number that Bhekisisa talked about, he talked about as many as 163 municipalities, and I think just a touch under 100 have broken sewage systems.
Indeed, as I said, hence I spoke about the successes and the challenges. There are challenges, and challenges primarily to sustain and render services. As Mr. Mncube said, the foundations are there, the policies are there, and opportunities are there. However, we need to inculcate that sense of responsibility to government officials, but not only that, we need to move from a position of collective and individual responsibility, where both political, government, business, and communities come together to change. This is what those who fought for liberation did. They stood up wherever they were, young and old. Solomon Mahlangu was 23 years when he was hanged, already standing up. Mr. Mteteleli Ncube joined the liberation at about 16 years. We are saying, let's educate and inform and take individual and collective responsibility. Let's put government officials who are not rendering services to account. Let them get changed if they are not remembering why they are where they are, so that there is a change, there is different. That is the continuation of the liberation struggle that I speak about. Let's change the mindset also of many majority South Africans. Hence, I spoke about mass mobilization, informing, educating, and taking responsibility. But the flip side of that is also, let's come up with initiatives to skill our people so that they are skilled to do certain things, and they stand up collectively using the resources and the apparatus that government has, possesses, and provides. I think this is where we are missing it in terms of the gap, where communities must understand that when they do not get services, they actually have a right to demand such and go to their respective offices until they get the services. I live in a village. I'm in a village now. And I think the other gap and the missed opportunity, especially in rural areas, it's integrating traditional leadership in essence into governance, because there are various traditional leaders who have done well for their communities. In the village where I am, the community built a school, and they went to government to say, this is the school, you need to resources, give us teachers. So that is what communities must do. They must stand up, take initiative, but insist that government must take responsibilities.
Okay, that's where we'll leave that conversation. Dr. Jane Mufamadi, appreciate your time. CEO of Freedom Park, Bhekisisa Mncube, columnist, speaking to us as part of our Freedom Day panel. And to sum it up, in Bhekisisa Mncube's words, a tale of two cities and a call for more accountability for those government officials, those in municipalities that fail to account for the work that they're meant to be doing. Now, still to come on the show, cardinals have visited the tomb of the late Pope Francis today.